Warning, the following show will spoil the hell out of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire books and the TV show A Game of Thrones. Also, you're probably going to find a fuck ton of bad language. The explicit tag is there for a reason.
Death and boobies, 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 death and boobies.
Welcome back to the Ironwood Network Book Club. I'm your host, Maester Ironwood. Here with me, as always, is Septa Ironwood. Septa, how you doing?
I'm doing okay today.
Doing okay. What do we got on store for today?
Is Brienne.
Brienne 2 of A Feast for Crows. Not really all that different from Brienne 1 of Feast for Crows.
No.
Not much different at all. Yeah. Basically, the only difference is we learn a little bit about Ser Dontos' family background.
Yeah.
And that's basically all we did.
Yep.
Yeah. That's about the only thing that's different. It's just two different towns this time. Or one different town and headed to a different town than the previous one, where we were headed to a different town and another different town. So
keep searching.
Yeah. I will agree with the change that the TV show made involving this portion of Brienne's storyline, where she came across the Hound and they had the duel and everything like that. Like, I think that kind of made her storyline a little bit more interesting, because this whole section of her storyline is literally like 8,000 pages from like the first Lord of the Rings book, where we're just walking.
Right. Now, in the TV show, Arya was still with the Hound at this point, right?
And then Arya ran away afterwards.
Because the Hound lay dying there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with the move that they made to have Brienne cross paths with Arya and the Hound.
Okay.
I don't know about you. That made it a little more interesting, Brienne's storyline here.
Well, I think it was a little farther down because I think she had Pod with her at that point.
She did indeed. So that's what I'm saying. They condensed her story. They condensed her storyline, including this area. They condensed it a lot.
Yes.
And they condensed the Hound and Arya into the same time frame here.
Yes.
And I think that whole thing made that whole section more entertaining than Brienne's storyline so far in A Feast for Crows actually is.
Yes, I agree. I do agree with that statement.
Yeah, that's my only objection is this is essentially Brienne 1 retold with different town names.
Yes.
Like, not a whole, like, there's even her stopping at an inn and having some food and getting a room, like, and meeting up with a knight.
Right, yeah.
Well, in this case, a squire, but
yeah,
like, it's exactly a rehash. They could be the same chapter.
They could be.
So,
but they're not.
I will give the show credit for that.
Yes.
I did like how they handled that whole section better than so far the books are.
Okay.
And I think that might have a lot to do with why a lot of people list A Feast for Crows as their least favorite book. Because
it's a lot of walking and not a lot of action.
Right. So A Feast for Crows for people out there who don't know, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons were originally written as one book.
Yes.
And then George separated them. But he didn't like separate them like, okay, we're in the middle, so I'm going to separate that into two books.
Like most people would expect.
Right. He took out POVs, like all of the POVs for this set of characters, made that one book, and then all of the other POVs for these other sets of characters, and made that the other book. So these two books cover the same time frame.
Yes.
A Dance with Dragons and A Feast for Crows cover the same timeline.
Yes.
But in that way, you're going to end up with, I think, right, so like these, like in one giant book, this chapter or these Brienne chapters that aren't that great wouldn't have seemed so overwhelming because they're mixed in with like
a lot of other stuff
chapters
going on.
Instead of just a book that's 40 some odd chapters long and two of them are exactly the same.
Yeah.
That percentage of book that isn't great jumps dramatically when you split the books apart.
Well, he did it for a reason.
He did it for a reason. Yeah.
What reason? I have no idea.
He didn't want to release a book that was that big, right? I mean, eventually...
Right, but why not just find a chapter and say this is the middle?
He said he couldn't find a point because, right, the timelines don't necessarily coincide.
Right.
His timelines never do. Like, Dany's timeline is off from everybody else's because she's off on her own. And so he said he couldn't find a good a good spot to
Okay, well
change
then
it.
he had his reasons.
Right, he had his reasons to do it. I just think that it detracts from Brienne's story.
Right.
Because, like, these first 2 chapters...
There was going to be a cost somewhere.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And, like, I don't think it ruins the book for me. I still really like this book. It's still up there in the series as one of my favorites.
Right.
But there are chapters that I do without. For instance, she could have just met Pod at the end of the last chapter.
She could have, yes.
Instead of having to have a whole nother chapter that's essentially just a rewrite of that chapter and then meet him at the end of this one.
Right.
She could have just met him, like when she went off into the dark woods, which is exactly where we pick up.
Right.
He could have followed her then, extend that chapter by 2 pages, and just have her meet Pod then.
Yeah.
I mean, save yourself this rewrite chapter. But I digress. We haven't broken it down.
Do I even need a synopsis at this point?
Well, yeah, because, for the synopsis of this chapter, see Brienne 1, which was, 3 episodes ago.
Yeah,
So see episode 245.
Yeah.
Or 244, whichever one it happens to be.
But we do have a haiku.
I think you still have to give us a synopsis, though.
Okay.
But we do have a haiku, which kind of talks similarly to what we've been discussing.
Yep.
Yep, still wandering, town to town for no reason. I feel useless.
She does, though. She does feel useless.
She does, exactly. And her chapter feels useless right now.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, let's not gild the lily anymore. Beat around the bushes anymore. Let's jump right into this.
All right. So she has arrived at Duskendale, which is the hometown of Ser Dontos.
Yep, his family.
To see if maybe Sansa and Dontos are there.
Right, which would be a dumb move.
Right. So she gets there. She's waiting in line to get in because the doors are barred at night.
Yep.
So she's in line with a bunch of other farmers and stuff looking to sell their goods.
Yep.
She gets into the town, and the guards at the door ask her what she's doing there. She realizes she doesn't have a made-up name for Sansa, who she's looking for.
Well, that's a horse of a different color.
Yeah, right? They scold her for carrying the bat. And she says, I'm just using it because mine's gone. And they're like, oh, well, go to my sister. She'll paint it for you.
Yeah.
So she goes to the painter. She describes what she wants painted on it. And she says, it'll be a knight.
At first she wants Tarth, but she can't do that because she still wanted for basically killing Renly.
Yes. So she decides to have it painted differently. She describes the shield she saw in her family's armory.
Yeah.
Is what she wants. So she goes over to the inn, she gets a room, takes a bath.
A cold bath.
Yeah, a cold bath.
Or lukewarm.
Yeah.
As it's described.
And then she goes up to the home of...
She goes to the castle.
Yeah, the castle.
Where's the Lord? He's not there.
Yeah, Lord's not there, so they're sent to the she's sent to the castle, and Castellan can't read, so she's sent to the Maester.
Yeah.
Maester says, you're not the only one looking for him,
Yeah. Of course. There's money on their heads.
Yeah. So he gives her the backstory of Ser Dontos' family, saying he's the last one, and he would know better than to come here.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find him here.
Yep. Yeah, it'd be the dumbest place for him to come.
Yep.
That was your name.
Yes. So, goes back, she heads back to the motel. She gets lost. Yep. She gets knocked over by this boy that comes running around the corner. Mm-hmm. He takes off. She goes back to the hotel, has a nightmare.
Do we know this boy? Dun, dun, dun.
The next morning, she gets her shield.
Yep.
We'll have to talk about the shield.
Mm-hmm. You like it.
I do. And she gets her stuff and she leaves.
Yep.
She starts heading in the direction of Maidenpool. To maybe catch a boat. She's thinking, where would Sansa go? She gets pretty damn close, and then her mind wanders off in another direction.
Right, so she identifies 3 places, which we'll talk about those 3 later. But she identifies 3 places. One of them is the correct place.
Yes.
But that's not where she goes.
So she takes off. She goes towards Maidenpool, stops to rest.
At the ruins of an old castle.
Yeah, which is probably where Ser Dontos' family was.
Born, right, where Dontos was born, yep.
Here's a horse coming. He doesn't see her. He just keeps on going. So she sneaks up behind him and whacks the back of his horse, and he falls off the horse, and the horse takes off.
Yes, this is the boy on the piebald horse from the ending of our last Brienne chapter.
Also at the beginning of this chapter, and he
knocked
was
her
mentioned
over.
in the last chapter,
Yeah.
and this is the same boy that bowled her over in the alleyway.
Yes.
And it is little Podrick.
Yep, Podrick Payne.
And he says, I'm Tyrion's squire. I'm looking for Sansa because he left me.
Yep.
So he's basically just wandering around on his own as well.
Yes.
And that's the end of the chapter.
All right. So, let's get into it. I don't think we really need to go chronologically through this chapter because there'd be nothing to talk about.
Right.
So, let's just start with Dontos' family.
Yes.
So, they were the kings of this area before the Andals came.
Yes.
So, Dontos is a first man.
Yes.
Interestingly enough.
He is.
So that is, to me, that is interesting in that he took an affinity to Sansa and knows who she is. I wonder if he knows the first man.
Probably does, because he's a drunkard. He knows his whole family's dead.
Yep.
So he's had a rough go of it because, you know, he was born wealthy and then his family lost everything. And so now he's a drunkard, wandering aimlessly.
Yep.
It doesn't know what to do with his life.
Yeah, so what happened to his family, right? So long ago they were kings.
Yes.
Then the Andals came and they weren't, but they were still the lords of this area.
Yes.
Now, at some point, 20-ish years ago.
During Robert's Rebellion.
Actually, it was a little before that, wasn't it? I think it was a little before that.
I think it was before that,
About 20-ish years ago, not
Yeah.
15. Dontos' family and another family plotted and kidnapped King Aerys.
Yes.
And then he was rescued.
This was just as he was starting to go mad.
Yes, and he was rescued by Barristan Selmy.
But he'd been a prisoner for 6 months.
Yes.
Yep.
This is where Barristan became known as Barristan the Bold. Because
Yes.
he walked in there and kicked the king out single-handed.
Yes.
Which is
Even though they had a giant army on the other
really
side of the
fucking
gate.
impressive.
Well, yes, because they were told if they made any move to take the city, that the king would die.
Right. And so Barristan did it and brought the king out.
Yep.
Forever cementing himself as a fucking legend.
Yes.
As he should be.
Absolutely.
But at the end of it, Dontos' family and the other, they were all executed.
Yep.
Except for the baby, which was Dontos. He was taken to King's
Yep.
Landing. And
Well, he
raised.
wasn't in the area when it happened.
That's right. He was away.
And his father had died years before that of fever.
Yes.
So he had no direct contact with whatever was going on.
Right.
So Sir Barristan had convinced the king not to kill him,
right.
because he had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yep.
He wasn't there. His father had nothing to do with it. He
Right,
was
his family
Yep.
did, but not directly him. Or
Yes.
But yeah. And after Barristan essentially walked through hell to bring the king out, he couldn't deny him that one thing.
Yes.
So the king agreed. And
Yes.
Dontos essentially was allowed to become a squire and then a knight,
Yep.
a hedge knight on his own. He didn't get his family properties or anything.
Nope.
But he at least got to live and become a man. But knowing who he was and what happened to his family, of course he's going to become a drunk.
Yep. And no one would hire him.
Right, because he's a cursed family.
Yes.
And think of it like if we ran into like the one surviving Rain from Castamere.
Right.
Like that person would literally just be like sitting in a bar drinking themselves to death.
Yes.
Because that's what they would do. Because
Yep.
their entire family had been wiped out.
And they can't get any work as a Rain.
Right,
Yeah.
because they're the Rain from Castamere. And
Yeah.
you were hired, then I'm going to bring upon myself the ire of Tywin Lannister.
Exactly.
I don't fucking want that.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like, literally the most famous song in the realm is about your family being slaughtered.
Yes.
I don't need that kind of heat on myself.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the position that Dontos has been in his entire life. So his story now makes more sense.
Yes.
I think it also explains not just the first man connection that he has with Sansa, but then also understanding the position that she's in.
Right.
With her father having been executed, everything like that, and her being basically ward of the state, essentially.
Yeah.
Trapped there by the crown. Him having gone through something very similar.
He sees him in her.
Right. Allows him to be easily manipulated by Littlefinger into helping Sansa.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, Brienne knows so little about what's actually going on that she's still out there looking for Dontos, who is fucking dead.
Yes.
And she has no idea.
Yep.
So
he's at the bottom of the
that's how
ocean.
far off the trail she is.
Yes.
If she's trying to follow the path that Dontos might take when he's not even the one controlling her movement.
Right.
That's how far off the path she is.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
No.
It's going to lead her to a whole lot of nowhere.
Yeah, she's like on the wrong side of the continent at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely. So the next, that's the story of Dontos' family. That's the story of this area and how Dontos' family had a downfall. That's really one of the important things that we learn in this chapter. Mm-hmm. Is that. I think probably the main to get a little bit of story about Dontos.
Yes.
So beyond that, you want to talk about
her shield.
Her shield that
yes.
she had repainted.
Yes.
Because it was the Bats of Harrenhal, again, a cursed family that you don't want to go showing that around because nobody will treat you nicely because you're wearing the arms of a family that's long been dead and deserted.
Yep.
So she gets it repainted.
Yeah, she gets it repainted to resemble a shield that is in her family armory back home.
Do tell what this is.
This shield is painted with a giant tree and a shooting star.
Oh, hold on.
Yes.
I think we may have seen this shield before.
In a bonus episode.
Well,
and a few bonus episodes.
In a couple, and 3 bonus episodes. Yes. Septa Ironwood.
Yes.
Whose shield is this?
Dunk the Tall.
Ser Dunk. Dunk the Lunk.
Yep.
All right. So
why would it be in the family armory if they weren't related?
Exactly. And George has confirmed they are related.
Yes.
So who did Dunk impregnate in Tarth or around Tarth?
Right.
Because it could be somebody whose, descendant later married into the family or something. So not necessarily somebody of the royal family of Tarth.
Right. It's not the redhead.
Right.
Yeah. So it's somebody else.
Yeah, that's Nan.
Yes. We believe it's Nan, yes.
We still believe it's Nan.
Yes. So I believe that Brienne and Hodor are related. Somewhat distantly, but I believe they are related.
I completely agree. They almost certainly are.
Yes.
In some way, yes. Yep, 100%. So, yes, so she has her shield painted to resemble Ser Dunk's.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
So now we have Ser Dunk riding around again.
Yep.
Without little bald Aegon, though.
No, but gets a squire, nonetheless.
Yes. Yes, indeed. From a highborn family.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Not quite as highborn as Aegon.
No.
But still rather highborn.
Yes.
Yeah, so we now have...
Around the same age as well.
Yeah, so now we have a parallel.
Absolutely.
Between Brienne and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yep.
Which is fantastic. We do get that little piece of information that, without George's confirmation, that at least Dunk was well enough known to her family that they kept his shield in their family armory.
Yes.
Which is interesting in and of itself, even without the knowledge of George confirming that they're related.
Right.
It's still interesting that his shield is there.
Yes, because why else would it be there?
Right, exactly.
It wouldn't be kept in the family armory. It would have been kept in an armory.
Right.
Not in the house.
Or repainted with regular Tarth colors.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was kept as it was.
Yes.
In, as good a condition, I would assume. I assume it wasn't, repainted or anything like that.
Right.
But, so it's 100 years... 150, 200 years old at this point.
Right.
But still recognizable enough that she can tell this woman what to paint on her resemble that one.
Here's my question. Egg, how is he related to Aemon? Because that could probably help with the timeline.
Well, right, so it's about 100 years ago, because Maester Aemon's over 100 years old.
Yes.
Egg
was his uncle, right?
Yes. Because Egg was the fifth son.
He was the seventh son of a seventh son.
And then Aemon was the fifth son.
Yes.
So he's Aegon is his uncle.
Okay.
Yes. And I believe Aemon was ahead of him in the line of succession, but then opted not to take the crown.
Yes.
And that's how Egg ended up being king.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we are. So that brings us back about 100 years, give or take, because Aemon would have been a young man just headed off to the Citadel.
Yes.
At that point, so...
It's about 75 to 100 years.
Yep, somewhere in that range. Yep. So the shield is still in relatively good condition.
So it's probably her grandparents.
So here's one thing I wonder.
Which would make sense if Nan's still alive.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. Here's what I wonder is she picks this shield specifically, and we don't get too much more information than this isn't on my family armory. I would like my shield to look like this.
Yes.
But does she know the story of it? I wonder.
I don't think she does.
You don't think so?
Refresh my memory on what the story is behind Dunk having painted his.
Well, remember, so he was the squire to a hedge knight.
Yes.
And the hedge knight did or didn't knight Dunk before he died.
Right.
And then Dunk basically proved himself the Battle of the Seven.
Right.
As innocent of assaulting the king's or the prince's son.
Right.
And Egg, who was part of the royal family, he was a prince. Think of like Prince Harry.
Yes.
That level prince.
Yeah.
Wanted to stay with Dunk to be his squire.
Yes.
And then once he was raised to be king, he appointed Dunk as the
head of the Kingsguard, right?
The Lord Commander of his Kingsguard.
Right.
And that's where Dunk served until he died.
Right, but I mean the story behind the painting on the shield.
So that was he met a woman from Dorne.
Yes.
And he needed a shield, right? Because he couldn't use the old man's shield.
Right.
He could use the shield, but he needed different arms on it.
Yes.
And he didn't have any of his own. So he asked her to just paint him something, the scene where the old man had died, the tree with the shooting star over it, and that's what she painted for him.
Yes. Okay.
And it's also interesting, right? So the Tarths are known as, the leader of the Tarths is known as the Even Star.
Okay. I like that.
Which is, in our world, is the planet Venus.
Yes.
The Even Star.
Yes.
That bright star near the horizon, which is what's painted on Dunk's shield.
Yes.
So you could argue that, of course, we were already tying Dunk to the Tarths back then.
Yes.
Because he has the Even Star on his shield.
Yes. Okay.
So
that's her shield.
Yes, that's her shield.
Very nice.
All right, so that's the next big thing is, I mean, she has the conversation with the dwarf, which is...
She gets a little information about where Sansa might be.
Right.
Who is this guy she's talking about? Because it's definitely not Dontos. Dontos is dead. The guy in Motley that calls himself...
See, I think he's talking about the Hound and Arya.
Okay.
Right.
Well, he said it was a guy in Motley. The Hound wasn't wearing Motley.
Oh, that's right. Oh, so it's some fool in Maidenpool.
Yes. He called himself... Sorry, Nimble Dick.
Mm-hmm. We'll get there. You have to meet him.
Okay.
So, we'll talk to him.
Okay.
In upcoming Brienne chapters.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, he's a fool walking around Maidenpool. Who's not Dontos.
Right, because Dontos is dead.
Right.
But this dwarf had seen him looking for passage for 3.
Yes. Which to Brienne's mind makes sense if Tyrion is also with Dontos and Sansa.
Right.
So, or if Sansa and her sister and Dontos are...
Right.
You know, the 3 makes sense. She can make it make sense to her.
Right. But I'm trying to think who else we know that we're looking for 3 people to get aboard a ship. The only 3 I can think of are Sam, Gailey, and Maester.
You said there's 4 because there's a baby.
Babies don't always count.
And there's other members of the Night's Watch.
Right.
That are going as well.
Right.
So that doesn't work.
So no.
Maybe survivors of the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Maybe.
There's all sorts of possibilities.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out if it had some relevant stuff.
We'll find out.
Okay.
We will find
well,
out. Indeed.
Okay, some relevance of stuff we already knew.
Right. If there are connections, we will come upon them.
Okay.
In this story.
Because I definitely have not at this point.
Right. So, in Brienne's mind, after this information that she gets, she can think of 3 places that Sansa would go.
Yes.
She has family at the Wall. She has an uncle and a bastard brother at the Wall.
Yep.
She has her existing other uncle is captured in the Twins, but his uncle is currently holding River Run.
Yep.
And her aunt holds the Vale.
Yes.
So she's got a 33.33 repeating chance of heading the right direction.
Yes. But she can get to all of them through Maidenpool.
Correct.
So she
it's like
decides...
a typical crossroads town.
So all she knows is her next step is Maidenpool.
Yep. And then she's going to choose poorly.
She had a 33% chance.
Yeah.
So she's on her way to Maidenpool, and she decides to stop at an old tumble-down castle.
Yep.
Which was the home of Ser Dontos' family.
Yeah, she notices 3 towers.
Yeah.
The golden stones at the top, the 3 crowns.
And the Dontos, their family's emblem on there
was 3 crowns. Yep.
So she stops there for the night because it's raining. So she goes in where it's dry, and she hears a horse. And it's not her horse.
Nope.
And she's thinking it's the sellsword that she had left at the inn a couple towns back. Thinking he's following her, looking for Sansa as well.
Yep.
So she's ready to fight.
Yep.
She does a lot of back thinking to when she was a kid in this chapter.
Yeah.
But I think that has a lot to do with her personal insecurity as a woman.
Absolutely.
Because she knows she can fight very well.
Yeah, we go back to... One of the things we go back to is when her father had arranged a marriage for her.
So she was 12 and he was 65.
Yep. And
this was her 3rd arranged marriage.
Yeah, and he thought he was going to discipline her.
Yes, he said, if I marry, you're going to be a proper wife, and you're not going to be playing pretend running around in mail.
Yeah.
And this shy girl who doesn't stand up for herself said, well, if you can beat me in a fight, I'll let you.
Yeah, I will only take orders from somebody who could beat me in a fight.
Yes.
And she proceeds to kick his fucking ass.
Yeah, broke his collarbones, 2 ribs, and their betrothal.
Yeah, it's a good thing that they were using tourney swords.
Yeah, she probably would have, her mace had no spikes on it.
Yeah, he'd be dead.
Yep.
So.
So he got beat by a 12-year-old girl.
Yep. Embarrassing.
Yes, and her father at that point decided that he wasn't going to force her to marry at that point.
Yep.
Because that was the 3rd failed betrothal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Poor girl.
Yeah. So she thinks about that.
She's very Arya-ish.
She is in a lot of ways, yes.
Arya's very vocal, though. Mm-hmm. And she thinks she's better than she really is. I think in some instances, Arya thinks she's better than she really is. Like, she thinks she can, like, be on her own and defend herself. And she's made it this far by herself, but I don't think she's wholly prepared. Just, I think luck has been on her side for the most part.
She has gotten lucky, no doubt about that. Absolutely. But she's done pretty good for herself.
I do too, but I think
much better than her sister,
who has help.
Right.
But yeah, they're 2 completely different instances. But I think for Arya, a lot of it just happened to be luck.
Yeah, probably.
So even if she is like a day behind finding people that are looking for her,
yeah, I mean,
it's still been luck.
All right, yeah, I'll give you that. But so who happens to be passing by?
Podrick Payne.
And
he's like 12. So he's on his own following her.
Because he's a squire.
Yeah, he has no idea what to do with himself right now.
Right, because he was Tyrion's squire.
Yes.
So the only other person he knows to serve
would be his
Sansa.
uncle. Right.
Sansa, because he was sworn to Tyrion.
Yep.
And Tyrion was married to Sansa.
Yep.
So the only person he knows to serve is Sansa because he's sworn to their family.
So at this point, he doesn't know Tyrion has escaped.
Right.
But when Tyrion was arrested, Pod left.
Yes.
Which was probably smart of him because the only family he had there is Ilynpayne.
Right. So they wouldn't kill him.
Right.
Because they just wouldn't.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go to the Paynes. The Paynes are extremely good supporters of the Lannisters.
Yes.
So they wouldn't kill him, but they obviously also didn't want him just hanging around. So he heads out on his own.
Yes.
To go seek out Sansa.
Which, he's lucky at this point because I don't know how the hell he made it on his own because he's not a vocal person at all.
Yeah.
He's extremely timid and shy.
Yeah. He seems less likely to this far than Arya.
Yes. Absolutely.
By a lot.
Yeah.
He seems like he's on Sansa level of ability to survive on their own.
Yes.
And yet he has.
And yet he has.
Like legit on his own.
Yeah.
So good on him.
Yeah.
So Brienne obviously doesn't kill him.
No. She smacks the back of his horse with the sword and scares the hell out of the horse.
Yeah. And the horse rears and throws him off and all that good shit, yeah. And they become quick friends-ish.
I think they tolerate at this point. Yeah, and that's
so
kind of it. That's the end of the chapter.
Where it ends, yeah. Let's see, Septa. We need a title.
What did you have in mind?
I had repeat.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with repeat?
Yep.
Okay. My other option was carbon copy, but I like repeat better.
Right.
All right. So repeat it is. What's our next chapter, Sansa? Septa.
I guess it's Sansa.
It's Sansa. Next chapter is Sansa headed back to the Vale.
Call me Sansa one more time. I fucking dare you.
Hey, you're the Sansa supporter on the show.
Everyone needs some support sometimes. Just saying.
So yeah, we're headed back to the Vale with Sansa.
Yep.
Let's give a quick shout out to all of our listeners and everybody. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you guys.
We love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you to all of our patrons especially. We love you guys even more.
Thank you guys.
If you want to learn how to contact us or support the show at patreon.com/ironwood. Throw us a few coppers. That'd be muchly appreciated. Maybe a gold dragon if you really want to.
If you really want to.
Other than that... everything else, ways to find us, ways to communicate, how to subscribe to the show, you can find all the links in the show notes or at our website, IceAndFirePod.com. So until we catch you guys again on Tuesday in Sansa, goodbye.
Bye.